Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of DX's Godzilla Corner, and today we're going to be covering the Spyro Studios Hall of Fame Evolved Godzilla. Now, this figure I think is probably, I'm just going to right off the gate, this is probably the best Godzilla figure I have in my collection. This figure ran for about $187.99. I ordered it in like early July and I got it just a few weeks ago this January. And this figure is absolutely amazing. I love everything about this figure. And before I really grab it and pull him into the frame to just show you how good he is, I just want to talk a little bit about how I feel about Spyro Studios as a brand. Spyro Studios is one of those brands that is kind of allowing people to look at more statues rather than X+, because I've never been the biggest fan of statues because I've loved Haya so much, but after really looking at them for a while in this past year or so, I really want to start getting into statues, because as much as I love being able to move my articulated Godzilla figures, I am really just one of those collectors who move them and then sit them down. But Spyro Studios is really showing us how it's done when it comes to fairly priced statues. This figure was only about $200, their Shimu was about $300, and their newly announced Tiamat figure is going around $400 with the rocks and diorama. But really, enough about Spyro Studios. This figure is kind of massive. If I can show you when I come in hand, this figure is probably the best painted and detailed Godzilla figure I have in my collection. And I just cannot express how much this figure just jumps off the screen of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. This is one of those figures that you just have to have in your collection if you're an Evolved Godzilla fan. I, myself, am not the biggest fan of Evolved Godzilla, because I'm not the biggest fan of the pink or him being a lot skinnier than the base Monsterverse Godzilla, but I really, really love this figure, and I love how much it just looks so much like the CGI model. But, I mean, enough about the brand and the figure. Let's get into the paint. So, starting off with the head, I think this figure has really, really good paint on the teeth. I think it's focusing right now, but as you can see down in the mouth, it looks just like Godzilla. You can see the tongue there. It's very nice detail inside the mouth there. The teeth are fairly painted. They look fairly well. Nothing really about the teeth that I dislike. I think they look good on both sides. If I don't hit the shelf here. They look good on both sides, and I do like the little membranes here. That looks good along with the tongue. No paint detail I don't like there. Along with the snout looks really good. I do like the spikier design of this one, and you can really see the eyeball. I don't really know how close I can get with my camera trying to focus. But you can see the eyeball there looking really nice. I'll try to get better pictures of it later. But going down the neck, you can see the pink starting to be incorporated into the figure. And it's a little bit sloppier up here, as you can see. The paint is okay up here, but on the dorsal plates, dear God, did they do a great job there. And, I mean, just onto the dorsal plates, this is an amazing dorsal plate design. Something I always loved about Evolved Godzilla is just how translucent and kind of, it's going to sound weird, but like gummy the dorsal plates look. They always look like they're membranes and you can see right through them. And they just look amazing. But as you can see onto the dorsal plates, you can see that you still have scales and paint from the actual skin bleeding onto the dorsal plates. And I think that's really cool. But the dorsal plates are really good. I think they're separate material onto the figure and then painted to look like they're just shooting out of the skin. And they look really good. I'll show you later with flashlights that they're translucent. But this figure is a really nice tone of pink, kind of fleshy color. And that goes all the way down the tail into the little Thagomizer. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But onto the actual paint on the body, if his arm isn't in the way. We can flip him over and see his chest paint. Now, Godzilla, and from the Monsterverse, has always been a Godzilla that has a lot of browns and grays and dirtiness to his skin. And you can really see this here with his color, because this looks a lot like Godzilla from the Egypt fight. And I really love that about him. His gills look really nice. You can see the little rivets there on the gills. And the giant spikes shooting out of his bottom jaw there is really nice. And you can see the little shoulder spikes. But onto his arm, his hand is really nicely painted. The nails are neat. And you can actually see his little elbow spike there. That little elbow spike is very nice. You can actually see more of the base color bleeding onto it, just showing it's shooting out of his arm. But if you look at his chest head on, you can just see all of the detail underneath the scales and his arms in that grabbing kind of outwards pose, looking like he's roaring at you. And that is just a really nice chest. You can see a six-pack there. You can see the detail of his muscles stretching and his kind of, yeah, I guess just more of a six-pack going down into his crotch area, which looks really nice. And then Really, a detail that I really like is this little patch of skin here. That just shows really how much they went into the figure thinking about it. But you can see these big scales going down his body. And onto his thigh, you can see the shapes that always all the monstrous Godzillas have had, these little lines here on his legs, down to his feet, and his feet look really nice. This is just the Monsterverse feet design. This, nothing too good on the bottom, just very nice detail, not too much paint, not too much to make it look bad, but looks really nice there. And you can see going down the tail that at each of these little big flaps of skin pieces, I don't really know what you would call these, but you can see how the paint starts and ends on each of them, going all the way down the tail to the Thagomizer. And if we look at the dorsal plates up top, you can see that they're kind of squeezed together rather than any of the other Monsterverse designs, that they have some more room. But if we go down the tail, we can see all the paint in between, and on the dorsal plates, you still have it bleeding onto it. And underneath it, you have this nice dry brush texture on the bottom that's a little bit more brown than any other part of the figure, but that's just to show that this has been dragging on the ground for the whole time. And finally, on to a new part of this Godzilla design, the Thagomizer. Now, this Thagomizer is very nice. I'm being very careful with the figure because I'm trying not to bash it against my shelf. But there's a little paint mistake right there on mine. Besides that, this is a really good Thagomizer. Don't hit the shelf. There you go. You can see all of the dorsal plates coming out of it there, and they're a little bit warped, I'm guessing from how cold it was when it got delivered. But they do look really nice, as you can see, just shooting right out of the tail yet again. I do like the Thagomizer look. I wish that he used it more in the movie, but it's really nice. Just going up and down the body, you can just really see how well painted this figure is. Like I said, this figure jumps right out of the screen and looks like the Godzilla that fought Kong in Egypt, and this is an amazing sculpt. And if we just flip him over, you can just see how much paint and detail went onto the underneath of this figure. Along going down under the neck, you can see all of the scale detail, and just definitely one way to transition the video. Now I'm going to try something new and use a flashlight to go over some of the fine details, and then at the end I will use a flashlight to go over the translucent dorsal plates. But the only place to start really is with the head, and you can just see the details oozing out of it. This just screams Godzilla to me, and you can just see the eyes a lot better with the shine right here. Oh, I'm going to gush over this figure. Look at the inside of his mouth. Look at that. This is amazing. I love how this figure looks. This paint job is just out of this world. On the neck, you can see almost the green kind of detail going down in between the scales. Especially on the arm, you can see all the muscle detail, and down on the hand, you can see that, if it'll focus there. You can see the inside of the hand. And then going down the chest, you can just see in between all the scales, it looks really nice. Onto the legs, you have that detail, like I said earlier, that kind of line detail on the thigh going down onto the foot. And then, going all the way down the body, you can just see all the scale detail. And I'm just repeating myself at this point, but you can just see how good this detail is. God damn. What a figure. And I just think that this is the most detailed Godzilla figure I have, because this beats anything I have out of the water, especially this head. This head is amazing, especially with the light going under it there. You can just see that menacing look. Look at that look. But going on to the dorsal plates, we can see as it goes all the way down his back. I will do the tail last because I don't want to hit his head. But you can just see the flashlight going right through the dorsal plates, and that is an amazing look. If I take a step back, you can just see that look. That is amazing. Look at that. Oh, really nice. And if we go down to the tail, we can just see that it just runs all the way down the tail into the Thagomizer. We can see there. And, oof, these have so much detail on them. I really didn't appreciate how much detail is on the dorsal plates, but each of these dorsal plates have so much detail going into them. You can see all the crevices and, like, breaks in them between the detail, and it looks veiny almost. It kind of reminds me of Singular Point Godzilla, and it looks really nice. Really, really nice. I'm going to do one more time just to show you guys, and then we'll get on to size comparisons. But this figure has really, really nice translucency for a figure this size, and I'm hitting it there. But you can just see it going all the way down the tail into the Thagomizer. And, oof, what an amazing look. But this figure is really nice, and you can just see from afar just how nice it looks with this light shining on it. I actually think this is better at finding the details than how I had earlier, but just, oof. Look at that compared to the movie. Look at that. Ooh, it looks like it's just popping out. Ugh. But now I will get on to size comparisons and looking at the boxes. And for our first size comparison, we have a basic SH Monster Arts figure. This is the -1. This is my custom version. But we have it compared to the Spyro Studios, and you can just see the sheer size when you're comparing an SH Monster Arts to Spyro Studios. There's no comparison here. This is just a really good figure. Now, having another size comparison with a kind of bigger SH Monster Arts, we have Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong, and you can just see the sheer size there. And with our Monster vs. Godzilla comparison, we have the Hiya Toys King of the Monsters basic Godzilla figure with the Spyro Studios Evolved Godzilla, and you can just see the difference here. I don't really have to say much. You can see the difference in detail, paint, and just how big they are, really. And here's my Evolved Godzilla comparison, because I don't really have the SH Monster Arts Godzilla Evolved, and the Hiya has not released yet, so far we really only have the Playmates to compare it to, but I'm not going to say much about this one either. You can just see the sheer difference in size, and paint job isn't even... You don't even have to compare them. And for the final comparison, I am showing off my only one X Plus figure, which is my Megalon, and you can just see the difference in size. X Plus still has it beat on size, but I think Spyro Studios beats it on really just the posing and the paint job. I think this is two brands just clashing together with their statue size, but I think I'm going to have to give it to the Evolved Godzilla here, just because, you know, I like Godzilla more than Megalon, but also I think the paint is much better on the Spyro Studios figure than the X Plus could ever do. And to cover the box really shortly, I just want to show just how really cool this artwork is. This is some really nice pictures of this figure to really show how good the figure is going to look outside the box. And on the other side, it just continues the dorsal plate design all down the back. And then on the back of the box, we have the pyramids, some information about the figure. And on the other side, just continuing with that pyramid image. But along with the Spyro Studios logo on the top, this is just a really nice box that I'm definitely going to keep with me, because this just really stands out in my collection as an amazing box art. And for the rest of this video, I'm just going to show you guys some pictures with some music behind it, this figure, because that's really all I got to say about this figure for this review. I want to thank you all for watching, because this is my second ever review I've ever posted. And this is all non-scripted, so I'm just going right off what I say. So thank you guys for watching, and have a good night. Thank you.